Hi, everyone. I see there are people waiting, and that makes me very excited. I went live like a minute early just so that everyone can tell me that my audio is working. I'm still practicing, so I'm relying on all of you to kind of help me out. And Courtney's not here today. So if you were here last time, Courtney is my best friend, but she's also one of my moderators that have been with me since 2020. It's actually how we met and became best friends. But let me know if my audio is okay. And then after that, I will get started and introduce myself for anyone new that hasn't been here before. But I can hear myself, so I think I'm okay. I think everything is set up perfectly this time. I'm definitely getting the hang of it. So thank you so much for being here so that I can practice basically because I want to make this more of a regular thing and I might want to introduce it elsewhere as well, maybe do some lives on my other channels. But hi everyone, I am Kimbyrleigha and this is of course Kimbyrleigha Live, where I'll be discussing current and ongoing true crime cases and help break down legal aspects in an easy to understand manner while I also brush up on the law because I'm preparing myself for my upcoming bar exam that I'm planning to take in 2026. This helps me tremendously to watch trials, to talk about cases, and dive into the law. I actually have a main true crime channel here, as well as a true crime podcast with my husband on Dark Livity. We just launched a video today. So if you haven't checked that out, I don't know if I left everything below, but also on those channels, I discuss solved cases. So if that's your thing in narrative format, that's where I do that. But here I'm going to be talking about things that are currently unfolding. So different. And if you want to know more about who I am and all of that, you can look at my About Me section. I don't think I put it below this time. I'll add it for the replay. I'm also here to apologize. Yeah. Last time I went live, it was my very first live in many, many years broadcasting. I've gone live on my other channel for fun, but this is different. I wish you could see what I have to do here. But when you're putting things on the screen, you're making sure audio works on things like Google and things like that. It's a lot. So I did have a great time hanging out, and that's what I wanted. I want us to feel like we're friends discussing a trial. I'm not necessarily trying to take a side and argue. I think that some people assumed that and said I was biased because I forgot to go to the very end of the video. I have got like 4 hours of sleep. Teething baby. If you know me, you know the story. I forgot to include Hank Brennan's redirect of Sergeant Buchanan. So I apologize for that. It was not intentional. I also forgot to show the jeans. So before I get into day 15, I want to go back very quickly. I'm talking just so that we can kind of put those things in perspective. And I want you to know that I'm following the evidence. I said this from the beginning. I have a law degree. I'm halfway through a death investigation education as well. So forgive me because that is the lens that I see things out of. So I'm seeing a lot of reasonable doubt. And I will say that if I see it. And I just hope that, we can kind of agree to disagree if there's things we don't agree on because. But I was just tired and I ended it early. I was practicing. So sorry about that. Forgive me. So, on the other hand, I'm also going to call things like I see them. And if I see something that's messed up, legally speaking, I'm going to voice my opinion on that. And I expect you to do the same. I don't think, I would blame anyone for speaking out about things that are injustices or corruption and things like that. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm on a defendant's side. I'm always going to be on the side of the law. So, I hope I got that. I'm not going to do a whole big spiel every time. So, forgive me. But I think we can agree to disagree on things. And the best part is, our life is not on the line. We're not going to prison if things don't work out. We're here to dissect and analyze and discuss. And I'm okay being best friends with you if we don't see eye to eye. 100%. The most heartbreaking part of this crime in this trial is that we don't know what happened to John O'Keefe. So I want to give a quick recap from where I left off, not intentionally, but before I do, and you're going to think, what are you doing, Kimber? Now you're plugging this. I forgot to do this in the beginning, but I wanted to let you know my husband has worked very hard on our merch. And this was the one I was trying to show you the other day, the Trust No One Club. He puts all of his time into making these cute little shirts and whatnot. So if you do want to support us and you like any of the designs, because don't get it if you don't like it, I wanted to let you know because I was wearing this cute one in the last stream and I thought it was adorable. I love the color too. I'm not usually like a pink person, but I have to say I liked it. So let's get in though. And let's start with the part that I didn't add from the day before. And we'll go from there. Let me make sure my audio is working for this. Here we go.
Massachusetts State Police officer?
In 2022, I was approximately 10 years in.
And you had been honorably discharged from the military?
Yes, I was.
Served the president?
Yes.
And so at this point, how about Heather Maxson? Did you know that name?
I did not know.
When you first received the call, did you have any firsthand knowledge whatsoever?
No, just what I was told over the phone.
You mentioned you went to the Canton Police Department first and spoke to Canton police officers.
Yes.
Was it at that point you learned about a physical item that was found at the scene? What did you learn from them that was important in your investigation when you first got to the Canton Police Department?
I learned that there was a broken, shattered cocktail glass that was recovered from near where Mr. O'Keefe was found, and also his phone was underneath him at the scene.
And were both those items available to you?
Yes.
Did you also learn any statements made from any witnesses that were attributed to the defendant at that time?
Yes.
And what was the statements?
At that point in time, while at the Canton Police Department, the statements were, "Oh my God, did I hit him? Did I hit him?"
In a question format, questioning.
Yes.
And based on that information, was it somewhere around that point when you called the hospital or medical examiner's office?
Yes, I made a call to the medical examiner's office.
Was that all the information you learned that morning?
No, it's not.
After you learned that information, did you ask the police officers, well, let me ask it this way. After you learned that information, did you want to go somewhere?
Yes, I did.
Where did you want to go?
I wanted to interview the individuals that were with the defendant when Mr. O'Keefe was located and get their accurate and most first-person information from them directly.
So forgive me, I was messing around on the screen there. I was trying to get everything kind of like organized correctly. But if you heard that, I wanted to talk about how his theory changed. So in the beginning, the sergeant was under the impression that John O'Keefe was somehow hit with a cocktail glass. I've always been a little bit confused about this, but we didn't hear the witnesses. We didn't hear the things that were going on. I still don't really understand how that could have. I don't really know. Maybe it was like he got in a fight, but then his theory changed. And the reason his theory changed, we didn't talk about this last time because, like I said, accidentally cut it off. He spoke to witnesses. He didn't know if they were eyewitnesses, but he knew that they were inside the house. That was the information that he allegedly got. One of those people was Jennifer McCabe, controversial person in this case, but they were inside that night and he is investigating. And his conclusion from those interviews was that he needed to look at Karen's SUV, which is why it was then towed to the Sally Port. He went over everything that was already on direct. So I don't think playing that when I'm talking about as Brennan went over everything that he said on direct. And the reason he did this, and it is a very good strategy, he wants it to be fresh in the juror's mind because cross-examination went on for days and days, right? So to refresh the juror's memory, which is smart, he wanted to go back and make sure they understood everything they went over on direct. That's what they did at the end of the trial day 14. So I don't think we need to do that. But the next thing they did was they had Sergeant Buchanan go through all of the pieces of evidence, these little tiny pieces of like the taillight, um, ones that were so small they had to put in their own little containers. And then they went over the jeans. And the reason he wanted to take a moment to showcase the jeans is he believed there were grass stains on the back. So I do want to play that portion for you and we can discuss because I think this was interesting and there was a comment I got yesterday about it. So let's look at that. And I'm trying to be really organized. I am not the most organized person in the world, not going to lie, because um I have like major ADHD, I feel like. So I've never been diagnosed, but you know what I mean.
I'm approaching with exhibit 85. Could you take the item out of your bag, please, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can you look at the back of the pants, please? As part of your investigation and the significance of the evidence, did you consider any debris on the back of the pants as part of your analysis?
Yes, the grass stains on the left.
Objection.
The appearance of the
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the staining that's taken place or had taken place on these jeans was significant in the fact that it appears to be green and grass stain.
What did that suggest to you as part of your evaluation of your investigation and the decisions that you made after?
It suggests that Mr. O'Keefe impacted the grass area with his left glute, transferring green staining onto his pants.
Are you or do you know from your investigation the amount of snow that was on the ground at about 12:32:09 to 12:32:12 on January 29th of 2022?
Yes, based on my investigation and review of video from surveillance footage, it appears to be very little to a coating of snow.
So I think that's important because I was thinking about this. It does look like grass stains to me. I don't know. I mean, when Jackson came back on cross, he was like, "Did you test it?" And that's important, right? Because there's always going to be that reasonable doubt. And that is the defense's whole objective is to make sure that they show the reasonable doubt in the case. But he's like, "Did you test it?" And he's like, "No." So it could have just been dirt. Doesn't necessarily mean that it was grass. But as Buchanan is trying to point out, there wasn't as much snow, so reasonably speaking, if somebody were to have, launched and fell on that area, they would probably skid through the grass. But I was also thinking, and this is why I like looking at both sides. I was also thinking, what about what about somebody being dragged across the grass? And that might have been something Jackson brought up. I don't remember every detail of these cases. I watched hours and hours, plus I'm writing other cases as well. But I thought about that because I'm like, well, what if he was dragged? That would have also caused these alleged stains. And then somebody commented yesterday, I don't remember the exact comment, but they said something about his jean pocket, that the jean pocket is ripped because his wallet had to be, like, ripped out of it or something. I don't know if that's what they said, but the pocket is ripped, and I didn't know if that was from impact or, as you're going to be seeing going forward, his clothes get ripped because they rip them off of them as well. I mean, off of him. When somebody is in an emergency situation, EMTs are going to remove the clothing as fast as possible to render aid, so you will see rips in these clothings. So the other thing I wanted to point out, let me see if I go to the next clip that I wanted to show you. This was actually Zachary Clark. So this I'll get into in 1 second. Let me go full screen and talk to you about the next thing I wanted to discuss. So I think the most important thing was that Sergeant Buchanan was showcasing that he has a lot of experience and that he went into this blindly, supposedly, allegedly, like any other case. And when he learned about the broken cocktail glass and the phone underneath, he was first imagining that that had something to do with the cuts and the things that happened. Then he interviewed witnesses. Then he saw John O'Keefe's injuries, and it was his opinion that he was hit by a car. So we looked at the genes. You can give me your perspective on the genes. You can give me your perspective on, the theory changing. To me, like I said, there's still reasonable doubt. Could he have been dragged? I'm not sure. There was grass underneath the snow. There's another thing I wanted to talk about. Brennan also wanted to let their jury know that they apparently found other videos that were unrelated to Karen's case that were inverted. Because remember the whole thing about the inverted video? We watched a lot about that on the last live. Apparently, there were more inverted videos that the jury did not get to see. Apparently, they couldn't get them to play during court. So they just continued with the questioning. But under oath, he's testifying that they found one in the corridor of the Canton PD, I think, and other areas. I don't know what would do invert cameras. Maybe I'll ask my husband because I didn't understand if the lens is like put on wrong. Again, I feel like that just brings up a little bit of reasonable doubt. You can give me your thoughts on it. But I want to jump back in now to day 15. There was no court on Tuesday. There was speculation that someone was sick, possibly Karen Reed herself. So court was postponed until yesterday. I wanted to recap day 15 of the retrial now. Special prosecutor Hank Brennan showed 2 clips of Karen, documentaries. And since I just started these lives, you didn't get to hear my opinion and my reaction from some of the other clips that they have shown, that have been shown by Brennan. And I actually think it's a really good idea for him to show those because it bolsters their argument, in my opinion. Do I think that they go to the level of murderous rage? No, not as of yet. I did not see anything that would say they were in some kind of like murderous state of mind. I mean, we can't get into her state of mind, right? But what I do see, and I think we can all agree, I see a relationship deteriorating, a relationship that looks like it was teetering on the verge of completely breaking up. I see signs from these videos, the voicemails that were played, you forgot to load the clip, meaning I don't have them. I'm so dumb. I didn't put them in the video. I didn't put them in the broadcast. The first one though, I'm so sorry that I didn't add them, but I can't find them right now because then I'd have to re-go through the whole video. But there were 2 clips from a documentary and you couldn't even hear what they were saying. I had to put closed captioning on. Basically, the interviewer was asking Karen that they were really going at it. And he's like, this sort of had last date element to it. Is that what was going on? Like you were kind of your last hurrah together. He didn't use those words, but he said like your last date element. And she's like, that is not what was going on that night. And she stated that John made it clear to me, I'm never breaking up with you. And she said, not never that we are in this good or bad, but you're the best person I've ever. And then the Commonwealth just cut the video at that point. So we did not get the context of what she was going to say. Was she going to say, like, you're the best person I've ever met? You're the best person I've ever been with? We don't know. The only way to get the context is we would have to watch that documentary. I haven't watched that one. So if you have any, context and perspective on, leave in the comments. But just know that we did not get the context. So somebody asked, what happened to Karen's glass? What we do know is that Karen said she handed the cocktail glass to John as he was exiting the vehicle. And then they later found said glass broken on the street or near where the crime scene was. So, do we know what happened? No, we don't. Another thing I wanted to just tell you about is the second video that they played. The second video that they played was another documentary. I think this was one from July 2024 if my memory serves me right. Now, she said, I don't think or I don't see how John could have known about me texting with Brian Higgins. She then went on to say, I don't think he would have acted very strongly if he did know. I think we would have broken up, but I don't think John would have lost it. So, what we can gather from that is that Karen didn't think he knew about the text messages and she didn't think he would get heated enough. But then we know in other texts between them kind of makes me think differently. If you remember this, he got mad because a plumber was coming over Karen's house instead of him and his father to fix something. Both John and Karen were jealous. I mean, if somebody can't see that, I don't know what they're looking at because it's kind of clear they did have that kind of relationship, even though they were older people. I mean, I think they were like my age, and we can still be jealous as human beings, right? But I think Brennan played those clips because of who was going to be testifying next. Someone who had personal knowledge of Karen and John's interactions. And that's Kaylee, the niece of John O'Keefe, who was basically like a daughter to him at this point because he was taking care of her and his nephew after their mother and father passed away. She provided a very emotional testimony last trial about Karen's coldness. That's what she perceived in the relationship with John. And due to the niece being a minor, her testimony was not live streamed the last time or this time, and her identity was protected by the court. However, her statements were later summarized by various news outlets that were covering the trial. So, first, I want to tell you about what Kaylee said in trial one. She talked about frequent arguments. She described numerous verbal altercations between Karen and John, and she noted that their relationship deteriorated over time. She said there was an incident where John asked Karen to leave the house, but Karen refused. She became loud, she used profanity, and then Kaylee testified about the tension in the household towards the end of 2021. So that would mean just before John died. Fights between them, and she talked about the early morning encounter on January 29th of 2022. Kaylee said that Karen woke her up at 4:30 in the morning and she was concerned about where John had been because he didn't return home. And she reportedly began pacing and she was anxiously making statements like, maybe I did something. and she was speculating that a snowplow might have hit him. So I did want to put some of this up on here before we forget, because I know a lot of comments come in and then I forgot to put them on the screen. Someone said, no way her backing up causes injuries. I mean, y'all, it's almost ridiculous. I mean, the shoes alone are not even the shoes he was wearing. I did see that. Nobody really broke down if there was some kind of inconsistency in his shoes. I didn't get to see them up close. I have really bad eyesight. So I have to like see things. I'm very visual. I have to see things side by side and understand that. Let's see what happened. Lenses wouldn't do that. It's software, not hardware, that does that. That's interesting because like I can flip a video. Like later in post, I can flip this video around and your comment will look upside down and backwards, right? Someone else said, I'm not necessarily a fan of Karen, but I do not believe she causes injuries. And let's see. Let's see this one. She was pissed. And why would you use that anger as a strategy if you killed him? You know, they were very angry. You keep cutting out, or is that just me out? Oh my gosh, am I? Oh, okay. If you can restart, please do that. I am so sorry. This is what happens sometimes. It's not us, it's actually YouTube. I'm hoping on the replay it won't do that because last time it recalibrated or whatever it does, and I didn't get cut off anymore. Someone said, I feel like the relationship is toxic on both sides, to be honest. I do too. I do too. Also, there was also Karen's emotional state. Kaylee observed Karen's frantic behavior during this time. She said there was a high level of distress and confusion about where John was. What are your thoughts on that? I really think it could go either way. It could look like she was actually very concerned. How many times has someone said, "Oh my God, did so and so end up in the gutter?" Because that's what we used to say. I'm from Florida, so we used to be like, "Oh, so and so didn't come home. He's late. Hope he's not in the gutter." I mean, we used to always say that. I wondered if in Canton, because I don't live in a snowy place, but specifically there, do they say something like, "Oh my gosh, I hope they didn't get hit by a plow?" Because remember, Karen was suggesting that maybe that's what happened to him. So I actually asked my dad because I don't know if you know this. And when I say this, people are always like, really? How can you not be biased? Or like they're going to think something. My dad's from Canton. He grew up in Canton, Massachusetts. So he can give me a really, really good perspective, probably a perfect perspective of what it's like living in Canton. I was kind of surprised by his response. I texted him last night and I was like, hey, did y'all ever get really wasted and think that somebody got hit by a plow? His answer didn't really correlate with where I was going with the conversation, but he's like, none of us were that effing stupid. So that was his perspective on it. And his other perspective is that, you know, he said everybody in that town is an alcoholic. This was his perspective, y'all. My dad is an alcoholic, recovering. I don't know how many years since I've been 10 years old, he's been sober. Okay. But he said that everyone, including the cops in that town, are alcoholics and drink openly and drive drunk and used to let him off all the time when he was doing something bad. His perspective. So, putting that in perspective, he was talking about how is it plausible that Karen could have not remembered hitting him? He doesn't know as much as we do about the case, but he's just giving a perspective like we are, right? Maybe if she's blackout drunk and had all those drinks, maybe could she have like not known? But that's what's interesting because, like somebody said in the comments, it doesn't look like the type of injuries. Somebody else said this, if you backed up sweet and slow, you wouldn't cause those injuries. But at 24, because I think we heard she was going 24 miles an hour according to the black box data from her car. I want to hear more on that. I think the niece was manipulated by the McAlberts to make Karen look bad. You never know. You never know. And I do agree with this part because I was trying to think about this the other day. The reason I'm here with y'all is because we're like friends, okay? We're just talking, we're on our couch, just you're in my room, and we're just discussing, like, oh my gosh, that's happened to me, or I know this or that, right? The other day, and I even have a part of this on audio because I was on Marco Polo with a friend. That's like a little app on your phone to talk. I was backing up and I drive John's 2018 Subaru Outback. And there is an option on our vehicle where the AI, it's like, it's not me, it's a robot. It stops my car for me. Thank goodness, because there was a Tesla behind me. Bad eyesight. I cannot drive. I don't drive a lot. There was a Tesla directly behind me parked, and there was only about a car length in between us. And as I was trying to back out, I was on a hill and I started rolling down. Don't ask me, okay? I was backing up, like pedal on the gas. But the car automatically stopped for me, and it freaked me out. I thought I hit the Tesla. So I pull back in, call my husband. I'm like, "Oh my god, I think I just hit this guy's Tesla, and I don't wanna get out because I feel like he's gonna have a video of it, and it's just gonna be crazy." 24 miles an hour is so fast when I started thinking about that. But what I also thought of is, did Karen's Lexus have something like that on it, I wondered? Because I think her car is probably newer than mine. Did it have that technology? But you can override it. You can override it. 24 miles an hour is so, so fast. I will say this is a comment. I didn't find out until later, but I have lupus. When I drank when I was younger, I would completely black out and not remember anything. I'm allergic. My dad kind of said something similar. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. That's very tough. Not remembering is sad, even if you don't have anything that's making that happen except for the alcohol. But my dad said there were nights where he literally, I hope, Dad, you're okay with me saying this. He said he would wake up the next morning from drinking. Mind you, he's an alcoholic. He said that he would check his vehicle because he wouldn't know if he hit someone the night before. So, gonna be happening. Most cars can't do 24 in reverse. There's only one gear, and it would be screaming like a banshee. So the entire street would hear it. I thought, because I'm a woman. Not that women can't drive. I'm being mean, but like, I'm gonna be the first to admit I cannot drive very well. I thought about spinning tires. I don't know if that happens on cars like hers. I used to drive a stick shift and I could spin my tires. So I was like, were her tires spinning? Was she like in the snow or something? And it was like, "Grrr," and she wasn't really going 24. I don't know. Just my little thoughts of the day. All right, let's get into the case because I don't want to go on too far without playing things because we'll get distracted. So the next witness was Zachary Clark. He's a sergeant for the state police for 7 years at the time, and he was in the crime scene services department, and he got his in-house training from the state police, things like fingerprinting, evidence collection, and he was on call. They're pre-assigned, so they're assigned beforehand, and this shows that there wasn't a special preference about who went out to the scene according to him, but it was predetermined, meaning like he was on call and it was his turn. And this was February 1st of 2022 when he was called out to Canton Police Department headquarters at 9 a.m. and he was met by Proctor for the purpose of assisting in documenting a search warrant on Karen's SUV. He took photos, he documented, they swabbed for DNA, they dusted for prints, and he testified that he met Michael Proctor at the Canton PD Sallyport that morning, and he photographed and fingerprinted the SUV. So let's take a look at some of the evidence. Let me go back. We got to bring up court. And let's play this.
And my apologies, Your Honor. With the court's permission, may I now publish some of those photos?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2616. And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in on the steering wheel just above the L for the Lexus sign. And Sergeant Clark, do you see what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And from this photograph, just above the steering wheel on the right-hand side, what do you observe there?
Vehicle's odometer reading?
And is that what the odometer read as far as when you took this photograph outside of the Canton Police Station on February 1st?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2617. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little on the center of that photograph. And again, Sergeant, if you could describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph.
This is a mid-range photograph of the vehicle's display screen, the center console, with what I would describe as the backup warning system activated as the vehicle approaches a pedestrian.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, the next photograph, which is 2618. And again, Sergeant, what are we looking at in this photograph?
More or less the same as the last photograph, sir.
Closer up image than the prior photograph, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down.
I'm sorry. I thought I was muted and I took a drink of my water. Apologies. My question is, why doesn't this man have gloves on? I understand he probably already did whatever they needed to do in there, but that just, I don't know why when we're talking about, well, I know why. When we're talking about a crime scene or anything, I'm just very sensitive on people not wearing gloves when they're touching, especially a steering wheel. But maybe they finished processing the inside of the vehicle. I just found that odd. But the odometer was important, I'm guessing, to show that the car was not driven anywhere else afterward, meaning it was towed where it was held. And then we see that backup camera. So I told you about my experience. We have a backup camera as well. We have that stopping power AI thing that helps me. But then I was wondering if they were trying to make the argument, could she have used that backup camera to hit him? Because remember, their theory is that this was actually intentional, not that she was drinking and accidentally hit him, but they're going for a second degree murder charge, that there was an intent to kill, that she was angry that he got out and she was like, I'm gonna run him over. So I just wanted to know if maybe they were highlighting that for that reason. I don't know. I can't get into their minds of what their theory is, right? But on cross, Iannetti pointed out the conflict of interest that the Canton PD had in the investigation. And that is why they volunteered to be off the case. So Clark is going to talk about how he had no knowledge of how long Proctor had access to this SUV beforehand, and I wanna play that for you. So, I picked these clips for you on purpose. Of course I did.
Canton Police Station?
That's correct.
At the time, were you aware that the Canton Police Station, or the Canton Police Department, I should say, had a conflict of interest with this investigation?
Yes.
Rephrase it. Rephrase it.
Well, were you aware, when you were called out on this case, that John O'Keefe had been found mortally wounded on Brian Albert's lawn?
I was advised of that fact upon my arrival.
Okay. And you were you advised of the fact that Brian Albert's brother was a Canton police detective?
I did not know that.
All right. Still, it was the Canton Police Station and not a state police barracks where Michael Proctor instructed you to go, correct?
That's right.
Was he there before you, or did you arrive there before him?
He was there before me.
When you got there, where did you see Michael Proctor within the Canton Police Department?
Inside the garage bay.
And is that also called a sally port?
Yes.
And when you got there, was Michael Proctor the one to direct you to the Lexus SUV?
Yes.
And when you got there on February 1st, that was the first time that you laid eyes on that vehicle, correct?
Yes, it is.
There was no other investigator from the State Police Detectives Unit or the CPAC unit there with the Lexus SUV except for Michael Proctor, correct?
There were other investigators from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office present that morning.
In any case, you had no personal knowledge prior to your arrival of how long Michael Proctor had been with that SUV before you got there, correct?
That's right.
You have no personal knowledge about whether anyone was monitoring Michael Proctor while he was near the vehicle before you got there.
That's correct.
And before you got there, you had no idea how much access Michael Proctor had to that vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your assignment was to take photographs and to process the passenger's compartment in particular for fingerprints.
Correct.
And you did that.
Yes, I did.
Bless you.
So, there you have it. And that's why they're pointing this out, because remember, their biggest argument is that we already know former Trooper Proctor is no longer on this case. That's been established. And I don't know if the jury is aware, but if they keep hearing former and they've slipped things in, so I'm pretty sure the jury has some kind of knowledge that there's a reason why Proctor isn't, still on the task or still working. So they're trying to make sure they always talk about that. Always. That means he's touched another piece of evidence. He's handed off another piece of evidence. But also, a year and a half later, Clark joined the, I hope I'm saying this right, Norfolk. Some people say Falk. I don't know. It's the CPAC unit, and he participated again in the investigation by interviewing Colin Albert. This is Brian Albert's nephew, and that was on July 18th of 2023, alongside Proctor. And Clark knew prior to that interview with Colin Albert that he was related to Brian Albert, who owned the house connected to this case. So Yannetti questioned him on whether Proctor disclosed any personal connections to the Albert family before interviewing Colin Albert. And unfortunately, there were objections. Not unfortunately, but sometimes I just want to hear more. There were objections from the prosecution, and it prevented more details from coming forward. But if you watch the first trial, you would know why this is significant. I mean, even if you didn't, the fact that, they're related. Yeah. So also, yeah, this is something that I think a lot of people can relate to, how someone looks. You know, Karen getting a bad rap because she's got resting beep face. I think I could say bitch on here, but that's true. I sometimes have faces like that and I'm like, swear, I'm not trying to be mean. I might just be like looking at something. Um, okay, who thinks he absolutely did go into the house? It's so hard to tell. Honestly, it's so hard to tell because I think that even data from our phone, even data from, you know, our health data, it's not exact. It's not an exact thing. It really isn't. Like, go test it out and see if it's 100% exact. I don't know. And that's, I think, why there's reasonable doubt to begin with. And that's what's hard in these cases. It's not that somebody necessarily, I mean, there's a lot of people that do want to just 100% take care inside. My dad even told me about friends of his, because Canton, that he follows on Facebook and he's watching all the things that are going on. And they're like at every rally, not him, his friends. So there are people who at 100% are not just on Karen's side, but they're on the side of they're afraid that cops are having the power behind the scenes to manipulate things. And that is what they're afraid of more than anything. And that's why they want to fight. Let's see what this is because I want to make sure we go over everything, that I don't forget anything this time.
Bless you. About a year and a half after that, on July 18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in part, you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert? Objection.
I'll allow that. Did you know that at the time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
That's so many buttons to push. If you only knew. Okay, so I'm trying my best. Sometimes I don't mute it and unmute it fast enough, and I don't want you guys hearing every little mouth noise I make. Clark just told you what I had just reiterated because I remembered that part. And he also talked about knowing the case originated in January 2022, but he never questioned why Proctor waited over a year and a half to interview Colin Albert. So again, reasonable doubt because it's like, did someone coach Colin before that? Could they make up a different story? That's what is trying to be brought out with this. This is why the questionings happen this way, because he wants the jury to see that there is room, there's white space, right? It's not black and white, but it's not black and white. It's like in between. There's gray space. Let's just call it gray space. There's like, could there have been something that happened between the year and a half? Manipulation, coercion, memories that are not as valid over time. And Clark confirmed that Proctor independently wrote an interview report without Clark reviewing or approving its content before it was finalized. He was never called to document any additional evidence that was supposedly discovered at 34 Fairview Road after February 1st, despite multiple subsequent dates being raised by the defense. So, what this is, in essence, is that again, they're highlighting that this investigation wasn't well documented, that there's reason to believe it wasn't conducted fairly, it wasn't conducted legally sound. And next, we had Lally back with Evan Brent. And this was a sergeant from the Massachusetts State Police. He testified about his background and training. He described he specialized in crime scene services unit, which we discussed before. And this involved all things with classroom instruction, field work. I think he said competency tested to make sure he knows what he's talking about. They always have to like make sure that the the expert is, or not the expert, the witness is talking about how they have their knowledge. These lives are hard, okay? I stumble over my words. But let's listen to what he had to say and what he did on February 3rd of 2022.
Sir, were you working with the State Police Crime Scene Services section on February 3rd of 2022?
Yes, I was.
And where were you requested to go on that date?
I was requested to respond to an address in Canton.
And do you recall what that address was?
It was 34 Fairview.
And approximately what time did you arrive at that location on Fairview Road?
It was about 9:45 in the morning.
And who did you meet upon your arrival there?
I met with several members of the State Police Detective Unit for Norfolk County.
And do you recall specifically who those members of the State Police Detective Unit were?
Yes, there was Lieutenant Tully, Sergeant Buchanan, Trooper Proctor, Trooper DeChico, and Trooper Moore.
And when you arrived there, what were you asked to document on that occasion?
There was a search effort digging through some snowbanks that they were looking for some items. They wanted me to document it with photography.
Now, during that search effort, were items located and recovered?
Yes.
Now, can you describe for the jury the process of item recovery that you observed there on that day?
So once an item was excavated, I would be alerted. I would come over. I would document the item in its place. And then one of the detectives would use a gloved hand, and that item would be bagged and documented on the bag.
Was that the same with respect to each item that was photographed by you and then bagged by the State Police Detective Unit?
Yes.
Now, if I could just ask you, if you could expound a little, when you say excavated, what do you mean by that? What did you see being done that day?
They were digging with shovels.
And as far as the items that were recovered, do you recall where they
I'm sorry, that was just funny because he was like excavated, and it reminds me when Sergeant Buchanan kept saying, oh my gosh, what did he keep saying? Kimber, your memory. He kept using a word like extracted. He kept saying that Brian Higgins' extraction, but it wasn't an extraction. It was basically just like screenshots of text messages. And now this is an excavation, which is basically shovels. But I digress.
were in relation to the snow pile and the ground itself?
Some were on top of the snow, so there was some significant snow melt. I think that day it was raining out, and it was much warmer than it was previous 3 days. So some had been revealed by this melted snow, so they were on top. Others were under a foot and a half of snow.
Now, what kind of instruments or tools do you use in addition to your camera when you're photographing items?
So items of interest would be documented with a scale, so that way it would show how big the item is.
And why is it that you use a scale as far as photographs are concerned when it comes to certain items?
Because some of the photos, you wouldn't be able to tell how big the item is or proportionally what it looks like. So it has the scale's just a little ruler that shows exactly how big the item is.
Now, sir, upon your completion of documenting recovery of items at Fairview Road, were you asked to go anywhere else?
Yes, I was.
And where were you asked to go?
I was asked to go to an address 1 Meadows Road.
And who went with you there?
Trooper Proctor.
And once there, what were you asked to document or memorialize at that secondary location of 1 Meadows Ave?
There was a vehicle in the driveway that he wanted me to document.
Oops, I was unmuted. So I'm going to be showing the photographs in a second. He was asked to go over to John's where the Chevy Traverse was located. And this is where we have seen ring camera, if you've been watching the trial beforehand, where Karen backs up into the Traverse. And also they wanted him to photograph the garage doors to see if there was any visible damage there as well. Again, he went with Proctor. I think the defense is going to want to highlight these two people, Proctor and Buchanan, right? He wants to discredit them, impeach them. If they're involved, it automatically means corruption and inadequate search and investigation. So moving on, we're going to see some photos from John's residence. I hope I have this set up right. Yep, here they are. Doing a good job so far.
And Trooper, just briefly, what are we looking at in this photograph?
The front entrance to that address, 1 Meadows.
Ms. Gilman, 7752. And Trooper, same question. What are we looking at here?
That was the vehicle in question.
And if you could, Trooper, just describe sort of perspective-wise what portion of the vehicle we're looking at in this photograph.
So we were looking at an angle view of a Chevy Traverse.
That's the
And
court
Ms.
that's
Gilman,
doing that. It's cutting out in the court.
Vehicle and the passenger side.
And Ms. Gilman, 7769. And again, Trooper, what portion of the vehicle in this photograph?
This is the front of the vehicle.
And
Very
Ms. Gilman,
pretty.
7771. Again, Trooper, what are we looking at in this photograph?
An angle view of the front of the vehicle and the driver's side.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 7777. And again, Trooper, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This would be the portion of the car that would have been impacted by Karen's vehicle. That's why this area is going to be highlighted right here. And I really can't, I would need to zoom in a lot more to see if there's like any microscopic things going on there, but we'll talk about that in 1 minute. Let me just play from here.
This is the driver's side rear quarter panel.
And Ms. Gilman, 7791. Now, you also took photographs of the garage doors at 1 Meadows Ave, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how many garage doors did you observe there that day?
And 2 garage doors.
And which of the two was this?
This is going to be the right garage door.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 7795. And which of the 2 garage doors is this, Trooper?
This will be the left garage door.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. You can take those down.
Talking without being unmuted. So I want the discussion. That's why I'm here. I sit in front of a camera all day by myself. I want the interaction. That's why I created this channel. I want to talk to you because, comments are good. I try to spend 2 hours every time my video goes live to do comments, but a lot of times my comments, if you haven't noticed, I just say like, thank you very much for being here. It's hard to get into a full blown conversation in the comments because there's no back and forth interaction. I want your comments. I'm going to try to leave the live up this time so other people can see, but I'm trying to highlight them on the screen. So I think we understand why they took photos of that and we're showcasing it to the jury. They're trying to show that there is no apparent injury or not injury, damage to John's vehicle, which I think is important for them to highlight. But I also think, we do know that there is footage of Karen hitting John's Traverse. There doesn't appear to be damage, but could a car hit another car and only sustain damage? And only one car sustain damage is what I meant to say. Yeah, because I have hit someone and cracked my light in the front, but there wasn't anything on their car. The lady even told me, she's like, "You don't have to. I'm not gonna let you go. Like I'm not gonna." And I was like, "Are you sure?" So all I'm saying is it possible? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, is it possible? Because we saw that it did impact it. Could it crack a light? I'm not a physics expert, but these are 2 vehicles that are heavy, right? So could the force of one cause a crack in Karen's taillight, but not have caused anything, but maybe like a little mark that was because the defense is going to come, right? The defense is going to say something like, you don't know how long that car has been there with nobody, no security being there, right? I think I'm kind of like highlighting something that I'm about to talk about. Yeah. Let me play this first and you'll see what I mean. It's perfect for this.
To be clear, the Chevy Traverse that you photographed at 1 Meadows, you did so on February 3rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you realized at the time that was 5 days prior to the incident in question, which was January 29th of 2022?
5 days after, not prior.
Did I say prior?
You did.
Thank you for correcting me because you're right. You were photographing it 5 days after January 29th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's fair to say, sir, that your earliest involvement in the case was February 3rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you don't know, and you didn't know at the time, who had access to that Traverse during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
Now, as of February 3rd of 2022, you, I believe, testified you were part of the crime scene services section of the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes, sir.
You met former Trooper Michael Proctor on February 3rd at 34 Fairview Road in Canton?
Yes, I did.
At the time, did you know you were at the home of a Boston police officer named Brian Albert?
I did not.
And February 3rd was the first and only time that you responded to 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That is correct.
With regard to anything that you saw on the lawn or on the snow that day, you have no personal knowledge as to how any of those items got there, correct?
I do not.
And 5 days after January 29th, you had no personal knowledge at the time of who had access to that front lawn during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
You had no information that a guard had ever been posted near that lawn?
Not that I'm aware of.
And when you got there, there was no crime scene tape, correct?
No, there was not.
There was no tent?
No.
Other than the police officers standing there on February 3rd, the lawn was open to anyone who wanted to look at it, just like any other lawn on the street, right?
I'm unaware of that. I don't know.
Now, in terms of your actions that day in
So that's what I was pointing out. He's going to again on cross mention Proctor. That's going to happen over and over again because if he touched, when I say touched, I just mean if he was involved, they're going to point it out because again, it just means, like I said, corruption, inadequate investigation. That's kind of what you can think in your head, right? So every time you hear that, you're going to know that's why he's mentioning it on cross. The other thing I was going to say is right. This was, you know, there was a property that was open that anyone could have walked in. They could have, there was no crime scene tape, no perimeter guarded off. Again, that's just showing that anyone had access. And Brent confirmed that he wrote his own report detailing his actions and observations despite Proctor being the lead investigator on the case. And he couldn't tell him anything about Proctor's reporting because Yannetti, was it Yannetti? Yeah. Yannetti asked and he's like, I can't tell you anything about Proctor's reporting because I don't know anything about his. It's only my observations. So anything could have changed. Anything could have been written down. And he also confirmed he was not involved. I'm sorry, he was only involved on February 3rd, and he wasn't asked to return to document any further evidence. So Lally does come back on, and he does some redirect about the reporting and of the scene. And I think I did want to play that. I think there was something in there.
Just for clarity, Trooper Brent, you did write a report in relation to your response documentation on February 3rd, 2022, correct?
That is correct.
And you mentioned that you also took notes, is that correct?
That is correct.
And what did those notes entail?
It detailed several items that were collected, my response times, and who else was there on scene.
Now, when you were there on scene, as far as 34 Fairview on February 3rd, what did you observe as far as these, you mentioned that the weather had gotten warmer, some snow had melted. What did you observe specifically as far as the snow accumulation on that front lawn area in the area of the flagpole of 34 Fairview?
objection beyond the scope.
Sustained. Sustained.
As far as these items, again, when they were recovered, several of these items were under how much snow?
I would estimate about, there was one particular item that was about a foot and a half under the snow.
A foot or a foot and a half under the snow. So this goes to the Commonwealth's argument that these items could not have been planted because, like, when this happened, no, they're from when what happened to John happened and not planted by anyone under the snow, right? But I think one can also argue, well, couldn't have someone pressed them into the snow? No, I mean, is that not plausible? Either way, I think it goes both ways for the argument. You can argue one way or the other. But now, to the part of, I think, this trial day that was, I think, the most significant was Maureen Hartnett. She is from the Kimbyrleigha. She is from the Massachusetts State Crime Lab. Try saying that. Just try saying that like 3 times really fast. She was the one who reported to the Sallyport when Buchanan and Proctor called her in to examine and collect evidence from Karen's SUV. She's the one that documented, we're going to get to this, but like the glass on the bumper, other things. Let me just show it to you. I made sure to save this.
Yes.
Tell us what your focus was on, what type of item.
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And was there a black Lexus SUV?
Yes.
As you were observing,
Forgot to mention this. What did you say? There was, did you say CSI or CST, like crime scene technicians? No, that's what I thought was so interesting because I'm, like I said, halfway through death investigation school. Death investigation is not just for murder. It's for any death that occurs, right? The medical examiner sends out death investigators to find out or to document, I mean, everything that happened on the scene. The first thing you do is take photos. You take them wide. You take them from wide to very close up. You document the way the scene looked before anybody touches it. That is like the most important thing in all of like death investigation that they teach us. So it is kind of weird to me, and I don't know how Canton PD operates, but it seems like they have a pretty big force. Like it doesn't seem like they're very, very small and don't have anybody available. But even in a death that's not ruled a homicide, because that would happen later, right? And then the investigation would get more intense. You would have people that are trained to, and they said that there was crime scene tape. I heard somebody testify, no, we did put up crime scene tape, but it was like too windy. But then I watched a video that showed, I think it was from Microdots, which by the way, I went back and watched all of his videos after we were on here last time. He has such good production. I don't know how he does it. I think he does use like an AI generated thing, but regardless, I saw the weather report from his video, so I don't know, take it with a grain of salt, but that it really wasn't windy. And crime scene tape is meant to withstand like wind and all this other stuff. So it kind of is weird. Like I don't understand why they didn't investigate this the way they should have or what's typical in an investigation. Because yeah, there weren't regular, I'm going to say regular, like crime scene technicians there picking things up with gloves and wearing like hazmat. There just wasn't. And and there wasn't like a tent over his body, like all the things. I mean, I know he was taken away, but why not preserve that area? Because it's very important. Instead, it was open to the public. It was open to anyone. Anybody could come and go. And I think that that just raises reasonable doubt, regardless of what you think or not think happened. But let's go back to this.
and making, well, analyzing the item, did you see whether anybody was taking photographs?
Yes.
When there's a person taking photographs, do you ever have any input or direct them, or do they do that totally independent of you?
After they're done doing what they're required to do, I will ask them to take specific photographs because I do not perform that function at a crime scene.
When you first arrived, did you have a chance to walk around the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the vehicle from standing behind it, looking at the back of it?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor? Thank you.
Yes.
I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the rear of the black Lexus SUV.
Does that photograph, does it appear to be substantially accurate to what you saw that day?
Yes, it is.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes. I screened for blood on various areas of the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And what was the results?
Those were negative.
What does negative mean?
It means that there was no blood present in that area, or if there was, it was below the level of detection of our test.
Did you make any observations where you saw items or marks of interest?
Yes.
I want to ask you about any observations you made of the back bumper. Was there anything significant that you saw relative to the back bumper of that vehicle?
Yes.
And share with us what you saw.
There were scratches on the bumper as well as apparent pieces of glass on the bumper.
When you saw what you believe to be pieces of glass on the back bumper, what is the process you follow?
I gave those an identifying letter. I noted those items in my diagram, and then I eventually collected those items.
How do you collect them?
I would have used either disposable tweezers or tweezers that were cleaned with a 10% bleach solution.
So this is one of the things that I'm bothered by. I'm always honest, but I'm just being transparent. I'm bothered by the glass pieces, and we're going to get to it in a minute. We're going to see the scratches, we're going to see the glass. It's really confusing to me, the glass. It's very confusing to me. I don't understand the glass. We're going to go more and more into the glass, I promise. But it's about to confuse me. Somebody also said, They definitely didn't do a good job, and that has come back to haunt them. And I think I could agree with that. I think that is one of the biggest problems. I think there are a lot of other bigger problems. You know, you have people like Proctor being really rude and above rude. I mean, it's just so unprofessional. You have that happening. And then it says it makes me sad how poor of a job they did for a fellow officer. Exactly. I think that's one of the other big deals of this case. It's like he's supposed to be, you know, your brother-in-law, not brother-in-law, brother in law enforcement. So yeah, it's confusing to me. Let's see where I wanted to go here because I think I wanted to see. Yep, here it is.
Would you mind pointing out for the jury what stood out to you? And Ms. Gilman, could we get a little bit of a close-up on that bumper, please?
So I can see one of the, it's a little difficult to see, but I do see one of the larger pieces of apparent glass right here. Would it be better if I use this one?
Could you? Do you mind?
So this piece here is a larger apparent piece of glass. I think that was the largest one that I saw.
Where?
And those two white stickers, could you tell us what those are?
This sticker, this sticker here is marking where the apparent pieces of glass are.
Is there another sticker above, or is that just
I'm
a
not
different
sure.
item?
If you could close up, I'm not sure what that is. Yes, so that is another sticker, and next to that sticker are additional pieces of glass.
Those items to the right of that picture, are those pieces of glass?
Yes, I would say that's an apparent piece of glass here, and this one.
And could we just go down to the bottom part again, please? Thank you, Ms. Gilman. You can take that down. Did you collect what appeared to be?
I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't understand. I don't get it. What? What? There's a piece of glass that's still on the vehicle from the what? From all the way from it drove and then it drove. Like, excuse me? Like you can't even keep your glass you put a coffee cup on the thing. Like what? How does a piece of glass come on. Come on. Like what? And like what glass piece are we talking? So get my mind forgive me because this is like I told you this is a problem for me. It's a problem for me. Is this supposed to be the cocktail glass? This is supposed to be the cocktail glass. So somehow it hits and then it ends up on the bumper and then somehow it embeds in the bumper, but it's not really embedded in the bumper because she can pick it up with a tweezer. How did it hold on? How did it hold on? I'm so confused. But I digress. Let's go to the next one.
Did you focus on the right rear side of the vehicle beyond the broken taillight?
Yes.
Did you notice any damage, any scratches to the right quarter panel or the right side of that Lexus?
Yes, I did. I noticed some scratches as well as a dent in the rear door in that same area.
Let's start with the scratches first. When you notice scratches, is there a way you marked them?
Yes, I would have given them a letter.
And did you do that?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, but I just thought of something else. Sorry, this is why I'm here with you. Right. Okay. Blizzard. She supposedly hit him what midnight, within midnight and 1 a.m. ish. Then she drove her car um back to John's. Then she backed her car out. She goes to, I think, what did she show up outside of Jen McCabe's? I'm trying to remember if she was at Carrie's. She drove her car another place. Then her car is at her parents' house because she drove there. And then I believe that is where it was towed from. But get your mind wrapped around this part. It went on a tow truck. Doesn't it go inverted? Like, doesn't it, when it pulls up to get on that bed, wouldn't it be like this? Like, shouldn't you have collected these items like before it went on there if you were so concerned and if they existed? Like, wouldn't you have looked and been like, oh no, there's items on here we need to collect right now and take like we don't have photos, we don't have phones. Everybody has phones. These officers didn't have a phone to say like, "Oh, look at the glass that's on this SUV right now. We gotta stop everything." Like, I'm so confused, but I'm gonna keep going.
Showing you a photograph. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What does it depict?
It is a close-up photograph of one of the scratches on the right rear area of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right.
Exhibit 142.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P-172.
Okay.
Could we close up just a little more, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. Starting at the bottom, what is that, ma'am?
That is a close-up of the scratches that I noted in that area.
And could you zoom out again, please, Ms. Gilman? Is that on the back bumper or the right quarter panel?
I believe it's on the right bumper. It's a little difficult.
But then again, okay, there's this scratch. From what though? Like John's body? I'm so confused where the scratch would come from. Like I understand what Yannetti or Jackson's gonna come on and say on cross, but again, this just confuses me because that would make sense on the Traverse. To me, that would make sense on the Traverse.
To make out in that photo.
Could you zoom in again and move up just a little higher, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. You have another sticker on the top.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is an apparent hair that I noted in that area.
So that doesn't designate a scratch. That's something entirely separate and different.
That's something different, correct?
We'll get to that later. I just want to point out that it's not a scratch. Now, you mentioned that you saw a scratch. Was it a singular scratch or a number of scratches? Could you zoom in, please, Ms. Gilman?
It was a couple of scratches.
Is there a number you designate if it's not a physical item, if it's something like a scratch, or the designations just for actual physical items?
I use the designation for both observations as well as physical items.
Would there be a number for the scratches?
Yes. Well, there's a letter. Yes.
Do you know what that letter is?
Yes, I believe it's D.
D. Okay, thank you. Take that down, please, Ms. Gilman. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm showing you another photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That is damage that I noted on the rear trunk door of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
When you say damage, what type of damage did you notice?
There was some scratches as well as a dent.
I'd like to move this into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's confusing because it's like now there's a dent on the back. It's like which part of the car are they saying hit him? Because it can't. They have to choose. Like, was it the back where the light is, and then the scratch is way up here. The light is down here. So that confused me. And then somebody just brought up the hair, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about the hair. The hair. How did the hair hold on? I don't know how it held on, but maybe we'll find out.
Exhibit 143.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P-176. Could we zoom in just a little bit more, please?
What's
You told
that?
us that you saw both dent and scratches. Starting with the scratches with the pointer on the TV to your right, could you show us where you saw further scratches?
So the scratches are up above, and then down here there's chipped paint and a dent.
And where is the dent in relation to the scratches?
Just below it.
Could we zoom in a little more if we could, Ms. Gilman, please? Can you see in this photograph the dent that you saw?
Yes, I was referring to this area here as a dent in my observations.
I'm gonna let that play but muted for a second because I saw someone's comment that was interesting and I wanted to keep watching this in case The hair comes up in a second. Oh, she is talking about hair.
I found one apparent piece of hair on the Lexus.
Was there a designation number for the hair that you found?
Yes.
Do you remember what that number is?
I used the letter A for that particular item.
Did you say letter A, ma'am?
Yes, correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm muting him for a second because she's just going to identify the photograph of the hair and then we're going to put it up on the screen. But Marie mentioned the glass is confusing, but a more. Wait. Can you guys still hear the court? Because if I'm talking over the court, that's dumb. I'll just stop it for a second. This comment I wanted to read. The glass is confusing, but I'm more confused why police would have planted it and the whole idea of setting her up. Why would they know to use glass to set her up? So this is a very loaded question because I'm sitting here thinking about all the things that I have heard, seen, acknowledged, understand about what the controversy really is, what the problems are. I'm going to tell you what my brain can reason about why anybody would be set up if that's even happening, right? I think what is a better focus is that this department did a really bad job investigating this case. And they knew they were doing a bad job. And they started realizing they were doing a bad job. And I think that they probably tried to cover their own asses, but it was too late, clearly. But it is confusing why police would have planted things, whether it's the glass or it's the taillight. But if we want to understand people's arguments about why this case is so, I don't know, inflamed and everybody's upset, we have to go back to the beginning. When when this first happened, and this is from a documentary, I got to go to a private screening and I saw some things behind the scenes and oh good, you can't hear the court when I do the thing. Okay. Sorry, I have like two things going on. I got to go to a private screening. I wanted to talk about it. Maybe I will at some point because I have a lot of like things to say about behind the scenes. So, something that I saw was that Karen initially, they were looking into vehicular homicide, right? They were looking into manslaughter, something where it's a DUI charge. She didn't know what happened. She was drunk and it happened, right? But along the way, when Proctor got on this case, and you can see this from the text messages, his ego, and whether that was because it was a cop, because it was Brian Albert, because he knew them, whatever the case may be in his own mind, his ego got the best of him. And no, he didn't want to just have it go away like it probably would have. I'm not saying it would have completely gone away, but if she were merely charged with that, as most of us know, maybe you won't even do time. Sadly, when those cases happen, sure, some people do a lot of time, but it depends on the circumstances. You could end up going to jail for life for hitting someone with your car while you're drunk, but every state is different. All I'm trying to point out is this wasn't a murder back then. When Proctor got involved, what I think is really important to understand through the text message exchanges that we haven't seen yet in this trial, but if you go back to the last one, he like wanted her to pay. There was text messages that he wanted a murder case. He wanted to investigate a murder. I mean, who doesn't want to investigate a murder? I'm not saying that that's, it's not reasonable to push something, but he got into his mind that he was going to do that, according to what I've seen in text messages. So then they upgraded her charges. That I think is where this all started, because with the upgrade of the charges, now it is a full blown murder investigation. Everybody's involved. The stakes are higher. So one theory of that is that now they're in over their heads. They're realizing they have to scramble around. Maybe they were, if you have the theory of something happened in the house kind of theory, if your theory isn't just Karen might have been drunk and hit him, if you're like, no, something happened in the house. Well, we talked about this last time. Well, that's a cop's house. So, why would they plant and why did they do it in the Sandra Birchmore case? Why? Because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want to lose your pension. You don't want your fellow officer to get in trouble and go to jail. You don't want his family to suffer. So I think all in all, it has to do with ego and it has to do with the brothers, the brotherhood. And I think it just went too far if that's the case. I'm not saying that I believe that theory. I'm just saying I'm looking at it reasonably and I'm saying that's what I think most people are thinking. But there are other people that just flat out think she's being framed and they just don't like her because she's an outsider. And I want to play this so that we don't get behind.
Personally back to the lab?
Yes, I
I
did.
also
When you brought
know
it back to
that
the lab, do you remember where you brought
in
it
his
when you
text
got
messages,
back
he
to the
hated
lab?
Yannetti. He
After it
called
was
Karen
entered into the
the R
computer
word.
system, I then
Rhymes with
sealed it,
regarded.
I initialed and dated it, and then I would transfer.
Oops. Sorry about that. I was talking over it. Talking over it. My bad. We already know that. My apologies. We already know that in the text messages, he said he hated Yannetti. He called her the R word, rhymes with regarded. We already know that there is something. This is the comment I was responding to, that he's trying to further her involvement. There's some kind of problem he has. Maybe it's the fact that a cop was killed, a cop died, a cop that happened. We don't know. But I definitely agree he was trying to further her involvement. I know. I'm so sorry. You guys are like the sound. Um sorry about that. All right. So that's what I wanted to show you there. How did the hair hold on? How did the hair hold on? And I think the biggest part of this, where the reasonable doubt comes in, and we heard jurors talk about this as well when they came forward. There was the one guy who came forward and talked. It's like there were times when these people were left alone, whether it was left alone with John at the hospital, left alone with evidence. So could they have planted the hair, the glass? Yeah, they could have. So when you have that, you already have the reasonable doubt. Okay, here we go. We're gonna get through this today. We're gonna get through this.
And these two items were also located in the back.
Thank you very much.
Sorry about what I did with the court audio.
May I approach?
Yes.
I'll take that. When you brought the taillight housing back to the lab, did you take it out of the bag and do anything with it?
Yes, during my examination, I did remove it from the bag to look at it.
After you looked at it or during your observations, did you take any samples from it?
Yes, I did.
Explain to us what you did.
I took a polyester swab, I moistened it with sterile water, and then I applied that swab to the external front areas of the taillight.
Sorry, yeah. There's a lot of buttons. Lots of buttons over there that I don't even touch. Lots of buttons right here. So I apologize. What they were saying was the hair. They were showing the hair close up. I probably didn't tell you what they were saying, but I was sitting here looking like an idiot without the audio. Let's go back.
Why did you do that?
My goal was to collect any potential biological material that was present on the exterior of the taillight.
Did you engage in that procedure pursuant to your training and experience?
Yes, I did.
If we could have former P-187 back on the screen, which is now an exhibit. Could you use the pointer and the television to your right? Could you show us or show the jury where you took a swab, what areas?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I took my collection from this upper right-hand corner, the red apparent plastic, as well from this area down here, another piece of red plastic, and then these clear apparent plastic here on the front of the taillight housing. Basically, any areas that would have been exposed when the taillight was intact.
Why do you take the swab and go to multiple different parts of an item?
The goal of this collection was just to determine if there's any biological material in that area, and there's no forensic relevance really to if it came from the upper right or the lower left. I took that collection as a whole, and in addition, there was a very small surface area to begin with.
When you took the swab, did you run it along the breaks in the red part?
Like the edges here?
Yes, the edges.
It's possible, yes, that I collected from those edges.
Do you have a memory of what part you actually swabbed?
I remember swabbing the external areas of the taillight, those that would have been on the outside prior to any damage being done.
Okay, thank you. You can take that down, please.
It's like she doesn't remember what part she swabbed, and then she's like, I swabbed the whole outside area. I mean, clearly you're not going to swab inside the cracked area, I guess. But then again, maybe she should have, right? That could be an argument for the defense. Like, oh, you didn't. What about the cracked part? What if someone's fingers touched that or something? All right. So again, I am sorry about the audio thing. You're going to bring this up, and we're about to go there in 1 second because I want to get through it all. I'm not supposed to be on here longer than an hour every time. And you know I'm a deep dive person, so it's never going to happen. But let's go to the next part. See what this is. I believe this is going to be cross-examination.
Could you use the pointer and the television to your right? Could you show us or show the jury where you took a swab, what areas?
Yes.
Thank you.
So you were looking for anything possible that would rise to the level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you're familiar with the parlance investigative concern, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's why you noted various items, for example, scratches on the vehicle?
Yes.
You didn't draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from, though, did you?
No, I did not.
The dent that you noted and photographed that you discussed on your direct examination, you likewise made no conclusion as to the source or cause of that dent, correct?
That's correct.
And you did therefore not make any or draw any conclusions as to whether that dent was caused by any motor vehicle or pedestrian accident, correct?
Correct.
You're a forensic scientist, too, for the Massachusetts State Police Department, as I understand it?
Yes.
With regard to the taillight that you spoke about rather extensively on your direct examination, you likewise were not able to, and you make no conclusions as to the cause of that broken taillight, correct?
That's correct.
And you draw, therefore, no conclusions with regard to whether that taillight became in the condition that was discussed on direct examination pursuant to any alleged motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
The dent, the scratches, the broken taillight on the Lexus, to your knowledge, as you sit here today, could have existed before February 1st, 2022, when you went to Sallyport, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And to your knowledge, the dent, the scratches, the broken taillight could have existed before January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You also looked for, as you stated, tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the vehicle, correct?
Yes, I did.
In that inspection of the vehicle, you didn't see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle, did you?
No, I did not.
That was actually a really good question. I missed that the first time around. That's interesting, right? Because he was bloody. He was bloody. So I think that would have been a surefire sign. Like if I came to a scene and I saw blood or tissue on a vehicle, it would bolster the argument. Okay, somebody was hit by this vehicle. So that was a really good question. This is a lessee. This is on cross examination. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. I think you can tell sometimes by the questions, but also somebody said her defense is absolutely stellar. They're fascinating to me. Trials are fascinating to me. I like it because they build a story, and that story is their theory. And then they try to prove it when they're the prosecution, of course. And then as a defense, they're just trying to poke holes in that argument. But as you can see, he was highlighting in another portion that Proctor was the one there at the Sally Port. We already knew that, and asked her to examine the entire SUV. And she said that she didn't just do one area, that she walked around and it was common, not that he said to, but that she does that for common practice. And then she does this anytime she hears a car may have been in an accident, but she didn't make any conclusions. That's not really her job. She didn't make conclusions about where the wounds came from. But I am still stumped on how those wounds got there. And I don't know if we can see those if I, oh, here they are. That's what I wanted to get to. Let's watch that really quick.
Ms. Hartnett, I'd ask you to take a look at that, and you recognize that what's depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of wounds on the right arm as depicted in a photograph of the decedent before, correct?
I've seen this photo before, yes.
You cannot state whether the wounds on the right arm as depicted in Exhibit 1 are from a motor vehicle, can you?
That would be on the scope of my expertise. I don't make any conclusions on injuries on a person.
So the answer is you cannot and do not make any conclusions with regard to the source of the wounds on the right arm as Mr. O'Keefe as depicted in that Exhibit 1, correct?
That's correct.
I think that's my question. I mean, it's everybody's question. That's what's mind-boggling to me. People who do think she hit him, I would love to understand, and I would love this because that's what I want. I want to hear everything. I want I want all the knowledge. How does someone hitting him, like where did it start? It's kind of what I'm curious. Like where did the hit start? Where did the impact happen? Was it on his arm? Did the tail light hit him and then the car kept going and it ripped through his forearm? That is the one thing that's so difficult. And the jurors even said that last time. They couldn't see how this happened. And even the medical examiner, who we have not heard from, and I think Odemaris mentioned we haven't heard from the medical examiner. We haven't. So that's what's really interesting to me. And then you said, I mean, the parallel vertical lines. How does that happen? And we've even heard from accident reconstruction, and they are stumped as well, like not saying that it's not a vehicle accident. Let's see what this is.
You were dispatched to the Sally Port at the Canton Police Department on February 1st, 2022 by former Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You understood at that time that Michael Proctor was the lead detective, the person who was in control of the investigation?
Yes, that's what I was informed of when I arrived.
While you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to conduct an overview of the vehicle meaning the black Lexus SUV that you talked about extensively on direct, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That was important to you, given the limited information that you had at the time about what was contended to be a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That is something that I would do in any type of exam where I'm looking at a vehicle. I look at the overall vehicle.
I think I mentioned that already, that she looks at the whole vehicle. I think it was this one.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups that you were going to take? And I understand you took 2. Did you take?
She's actually 17, and those were reports from news stations who listened to her testimonies that they might have just said distressed, like she saw Karen was distressed. I'm not sure if it's word for word on those articles. I wasn't there. Nobody, it's not live for us to see. But she is 17, and I think she would have the vocabulary to say that she looked distressed.
Take 2 swabs?
2 swabs, but they were considered the same sample. They were taken from the same cup, same stain.
That was what I wanted to get at, is you took 2 swabs, but they were from the same solo cup.
That's correct.
Do you recall how you chose which solo cup you were going to take the swab from?
I don't recall.
Could that be of significance, which one you chose and why?
In this particular case, I did not believe it was significant at the time.
Did you confer with anybody as to what might be the best solo cup from which to take the swab?
I did receive information about where those solo cups were collected from, which helped me in making that decision.
As a forensic scientist, too, you're aware that blood stains can contain, and these red-brown stains here, could contain multiple contributors, correct?
In some instances, that is correct.
What's a multiple contributor?
A multiple contributor, I believe the term more used in the DNA unit. However, having many contributors to a particular stain just mean there may be multiple sources of that biological material.
Do you know which red-brown stains that are contended to be found at the scene relate to which solo cup in the bag that these solo cups were in?
The information I had at the time were that these were collected from a same single stained area from beneath the victim.
But you
I had to say one thing or a couple of things. Someone was talking about where the injuries are. Okay, so I was thinking about this. Either the theory is that Karen's SUV was doing a 3-point turn, right? I'm not on a big screen here, but I'm a little one, but doing the 3-point turn and backed into him and then he flew. Because when you usually get hit by a vehicle, I told you I got hit by a car, right? You get thrown in the direction in which you got hit, right? So I guess that could have had him land where he is, right? If she was coming a certain way and she backed into him when he was staying there, and then he got there. But then you can't kind of have it both ways. Because if he were hit that way and flew across the grass, how would he have been dragged? If he was trampled over by the vehicle and then she went forward and he was dragged, then he would be on the road. So it's kind of that's why I don't think the accident reconstructionist can show that it was from a car. Because I'm not an expert in this. I'm just giving you what I have gathered. And then this was just funny because, yeah, solo cups, it's really funny. She's like, I live in the South. In fact, Kimber, I live in Florida, Pensacola, and solo cups are like our main, or you mean our mainstay? I don't know if you can, I think I understand. Solo cups should not be used to collect blood evidence. And I forgot to tell you what I was setting up for. He talked about the solo cups, and apparently she was directed that, all of this blood came from underneath John O'Keefe's body. So, yep, just go ahead and collect it. And then what I heard in here, and I already wanted your thoughts. We already know that solo cups are not supposed to be crime scene evidence storage containers, but she verbally heard where the cups and the blood were taken, right? So she just verbally heard from one of the officers And that's not good chain of evidence records, right? That you just heard it verbally, like, oh, yeah, these were taken from underneath John O'Keefe's body, but there's no record of that. So I think that's a little, again, it just goes to the argument that I already told you about. Let's go to this one.
You did not find any glass on the inside of the taillight, did you?
He's talking.
Are you referring to like loose pieces?
Sorry, he was talking really, really low.
Any kind of glass at all?
I did not note anything unusual inside the taillight.
I'm speaking, thank you for that answer. I am speaking specifically about glass. You didn't find any glass on the inside of that taillight when you were at Sallyport for your entire inspection on February 1st, 2022, correct?
I'm just want to make sure that I understand your question. I didn't find anything that was not inherent to the taillight inside. I don't know what the taillight's made out of. So if there's a portion on the inside that's made out of glass, it may have been there. I didn't see anything that was out of place on the interior of the taillight.
So using your terms inherent, you mean by that something could have been on the inside of that taillight that was part of the taillight that could have been glass. But other than that, there's no what scientists call exogenous or outside glass or glass that doesn't belong as part of the taillight, correct?
I'm hesitant to answer that specific question. I don't perform glass analysis, so I just perform collection. So if there was something that apparently looked like glass that had been loose inside, if that's what you're referring to, I can answer that question. But I can't say specifically whether a material is glass.
I love the Lawyer You Know show. I think he was going live at the same time, but anyway, just saw him pop up. Okay, I wanted to talk about this part. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself and I forget to set up the scene. The glass cup is what they're kind of referring to. So the theory is that Karen backed up, John was holding the glass cup got broken. So would the pieces of where did they go, right? Did they shatter inside of it? Why are they on the bumper and not inside the glass and not inside the headlight? So I think this is what he was setting her up to kind of be stumped by, right? She's like, no, there wasn't anything inside, but I really can't tell you that because I don't really know what glass is because I'm not a glass expert. I don't really know if I collected anything that wasn't supposed to be there. But to somebody's point, and I think this is really important, so I want to make sure I'm putting these on the screen and not leaving them out. Kay said, wait, what if he had his hand up to protect his face? Kind of like that, I guess. Oh, like this? Well, no, it's this part of his arm. It's the outside of his arm. It's like right here, sort of like, it's like, can you guys see my arm? It's like this part of his arm, sort of like on the edge. So you're saying if he went like that, he would have to been like this. I think he would have had to been like that. But I mean, maybe that's a natural, like this. I don't know. But I love these theories. I love these things to talk about because I'm going to go back tonight and tell John all these things. Somebody else said, Marie, and you have good questions. If the broken glass was scraped during the impact, I could see the injuries. His sleeve is coming. I think I have a portion of this video because we're coming up on the end now. I got through most of it. There's going to be his sleeve, and there's actually tiny holes in his sleeve, like tiny holes. And somebody brought this up last time that they actually look more like dog teeth that penetrated because they're like little holes all along the same area. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Could they also be from a plow? That was another question. A plow somehow has teeth. Some of them have teeth on the bottom. Could that have pierced through and cut him? I don't know. These are all just speculation. Somebody else said this. This is not the niece. The niece's testimony was not televised, right? And when I was reading about the niece, I told you it was from news reports because there is media in the courtroom. So I was just summarizing from their documents that I got. I don't know if it was word for word, but the gist of it was as I explained. Somebody else said, I think that if we are questioning everything, so is the jury. The reasonable doubt in many pieces of evidence is overwhelming. I flip flop. I do too. I do too. I do too. But remember, we are only hearing the prosecution's case at this point. So I always tell people to wait. I'm not saying just in this case. I get like frustrated because I'm like, wait. I'll be watching a trial and before the defense has even presented any of their evidence, people are like, oh, this person's guilty. I'm like, but you only heard the prosecution. So you're going to think that way until you hear it refuted. So just wait. So that's why I really like to hear everything. The cups came from the neighbor's house. From the UK, does everyone in the cups in the I don't have any in my house at the moment. I have like clear plastic solo cups, so I guess I kind of do have solo cups. My favorite part, which I don't know if we got there yet, this is from Rachel, when she said she has never in her career except this case obtained evidence from a red solo cup. Exactly. Exactly. I didn't put that part in, but it's in there. I had to be I had to pick wisely where I went with the evidence today. Let's now switch gears a little bit. I got your thoughts on, DNA. Oh, she also said that it was never tested for DNA. And she didn't know who she handed the solo cups to afterward. So anyone could have been in possession of them. But now I want to switch gears to the back of the vehicle. Now, this is ice and snow from the back of Karen's vehicle. Let's take a look. This is when it was first pulled in, I believe.
Ms. Hartnett, there had been various weather before February 1st in the area. Is that correct? You testified to that somewhat on direct examination.
Yes, that's correct.
And are you able to discern from what is on the screen now that there is some type of precipitation that is on the back window of the liftgate of the vehicle?
Yes.
And is that consistent with what you observed when you were in the Sally Port on February 1st?
I don't believe I observed the precipitation on the back of the vehicle by the time I arrived.
But does this refresh your recollection as to whether there was, in fact, that precipitation on the vehicle at that time?
Can you ask it differently so we need it clearer?
Yes. Do you recall when you were at the Sally Port on February 1st any precipitation on the rear window of the liftgate of the SUV?
No, I do not recall.
And does this depiction refresh your recollection on that point?
I'll allow that. Does it?
No, I don't recall seeing any precipitation on the vehicle, and I don't know when that photo was taken, so that does not refresh my memory of that instance.
Is there a date of January 29th, 2022 on that photo? We can enlarge it if that would help. And again, this is in evidence. Do you see what is at the bottom of the photo?
I do.
Now if we could play, with Your Honor's permission, this video. And if we could stop it at certain points, Mr. Wolk, that would be helpful. May we, Your Honor?
Okay.
Thank you.
Keep your eye on the snow or ice. It's just starting to fall right off there.
If you could wait, Mr. Wolk, until the sirens pass. Mr. Wolk, if you can go back just and wait until the sirens pass, please. Thank you. I think they passed.
There's the snow falling off. I'm friends with Derek. Talk all the time. Someone in the comments. He said one way the evidence
If you
could
could
stand.
accelerate it just a little bit, Mr. Wolk, without.
They said one way the evidence could stay on Derek Crime Weekly, he lives in Rhode Island, said the only way he sees that evidence could stay on her bumper after her driving home would have been if the snow froze on. But wait, pointed out that would have been after her driving the vehicle all the way to her house or John's. Huh, it's interesting. Somebody else said, we'll go back to it in 1 second. Could she have hit him, but he didn't fly far? Then she dragged him to where, well, there were no tracks of a car inside the grass. We would have seen that, right? Or we would have seen some evidence of it, I would assume. Maybe not. Maybe you're right. And the arm could be from it being dragged over glass. But like what glass? Just the it seems like an impossible scenario for the cocktail glass. Like I'm drinking out of this, it breaks, it falls in a spot where my arm just happens. To me, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think it's too many little things that would have to line up, but I don't know. I think it's much more plausible that those injuries didn't happen from a car, but that's just me. Not saying that you're wrong. I don't know. Anything could happen. Let's go back.
Overly accelerating all that's happening?
It's like watching water boil, but we're watching snow melt.
And accelerate it a little bit more. And that's good. And if you could bring, yes, thank you. If we could have the lights on and take that down, please. Can you describe what you just saw?
Whatever the white material was present on the back of the vehicle was falling off
And where was it falling onto?
the ground.
And did it hit anything before the ground? For example, did it hit the bumper before it hit the ground?
I didn't take note of that.
That was on January 29th, 2022. You were at the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022, correct?
That's correct.
So, that occurs on January 29th. You come to the Sally Port on February 1st, yet there is glass
He is talking so low.
over
He's just asking her if she was at the Sally Port that
on
morning.
February 1st that, as you have described it, is just perched on the bumper, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But she was there, I believe, February 1st.
Do you know generally where Dighton, Massachusetts is?
Yes.
Do you know where, and you obviously know where Canton is.
Yes.
How far away would you say Dighton is from Canton?
Time-wise, maybe 30 to 45 minutes.
And therefore, roughly, if someone were to go the speed limit, around 30 minutes away?
Sure.
Not holding you to any exact time, just generally. Your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dighton, the one we've been talking about, the Lexus, and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sally Port garage at the Canton PD before you started your examination, correct?
That's correct.
And you were made aware before your inspection or examination on February 1st of 2022 that the alleged incident in this case took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew you were looking at this vehicle, when you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, that the vehicle, by definition as to what we had just covered, went from Canton to Dighton and then towed back from Dighton back to Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But it would have also gone to different houses after that. I mean, like before it came to the Sally Port, it had gone around town, like we talked about before. I don't live in the snow, so I really have no business giving my opinion on this part. I'm just going to say that because I see where he's coming from. He's coming from the reasonable mindset of, look, this car has been here, there, and everywhere. How is it that a tiny piece of hair and glass shards are still on it? But like we just mentioned, I'm not from the snow. If the snow was packed on sure, I guess maybe it could have been like a barrier from those things being able to fall off. We're almost to the end because I want to tell you, I'm here to get your thoughts. No, she didn't have chains on her tires. Someone asked about that. Um, that's a lot of travel. Someone mentioned, yeah, it is a lot of travel before she got there. And then he was just showing that the snow was falling. And then where did it go? It went right on the taillight. That could be another argument in my mind. If I was a juror, it could be another argument that, like, let's just say hair, you know how it falls off and goes everywhere? I mean, my hair is found. My hair is probably like on this microphone over here and John's side. Hair gets everywhere. I don't know how long John O'Keefe's hair was, but hair is hair, right? It gets everywhere. So if you've driven this vehicle before, if you've been near it, chances are your hair might be on it. So another argument that could be made right there is, let's say a hair was up here on the top of the car. Let's say it got there from days and days ago of somebody's backpack being put up there and one of John's hairs got on it, right? And let's say that snow fell and then it brought the hair down to the area of the taillight, but it wouldn't have been there to begin with. So that's just another way to look at it. I'm just speaking like a juror would be thinking, because that's what I would be thinking. Like, oh, it's a hair. Right. All right. Let's go to my last clip that I have. And this is the glass again. My hair is everywhere.
So, um, try and ask a question without too much.
I understand. Understood, Your Honor. Thank you. In your experience as a forensic scientist too, is it possible for glass that is perched on a bumper to travel 60 miles and be subject to average wind speeds of 15.7 and still remain on the bumper?
Objection.
So it's sustained without a proper.
He's talking so low, guys.
Have you ever had experience with analyzing glass on any surface, an outdoor surface, and correlating that glass to weather conditions to make a determination as to the likelihood that glass could be or not be in a certain place on a certain date and time? Have you ever done that?
No.
Based upon what you know about this case, just based upon what you know, and from your role as a forensic scientist too only, do you believe that information would be relevant to your role as a forensic scientist too?
Sustained.
How did you recover the glass? What tool did you use to recover the glass on the bumper?
Tweezers.
How difficult or easy was it for you to take the glass off that bumper with, did you say tweezers?
Yes, that's correct.
How hard or easy was it for you to remove those pieces of glass with tweezers?
It was not difficult.
So it was easy.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So that's where I personally was going to end it today because I just wanted to kind of wrap up and get your thoughts on everything. I hope I have not offended anyone in this live. It's not my intention. My intention is just to be a fly on the wall, like a 13th juror, just taking it all in because, like someone mentioned in the comments, jurors go back and forth. It's okay to question things and go back and forth and think, like, wait, could that happen? Oh, yeah, that does seem like it might happen. Oh, that's a really good point. That's what jurors are going to do when they're back there deliberating. If you've ever been on a jury, let me know. When they're back there deliberating, they're going to be asking each other questions. They're going to be bouncing ideas. They're going to be people that remember one thing, another juror that remembers another, and a lot of different backgrounds and thought processes and perspectives. And that's what we're doing here in the comments. So I'm hoping that's what I can do here on this channel, why I created this channel. It wasn't because I want to take like a crazy stance on one way or the other. I'm just genuinely interested in trials. Not that you care about this part, but when I was in law school, I would race home and turn on Court TV because that was the only place I used to get my trial coverage at the time. There wasn't YouTube like there is now, but I would race home, I would make popcorn, and I would study while I was listening to trials. And that was my escape. And I would listen to Vinnie Politan, I would listen to Nancy Grace. Those are like my tried and true, but that's just a little about me. So this is what I like to do in my spare time, and now I'm sharing it with you. And the reason why I can only go for like an hour and a half, that's kind of going to be I know I'm going over right now. Oh, I'm at 2 hours, is because I have to write my cases. I'm always behind as it is writing cases for Dark Livity and also for my main channel. So that's why I'm trying to do this, but also make sure that I don't neglect my other channels because that's really important. That's where you guys found me. Those are my babies. And hang on one second. I have some comments. Oh, did you guys see the hair loss that I had a few months ago? It's starting to come back. But I want to reserve like the last few minutes just to chit chat as human beings and not have to necessarily keep talking about a specific case. And I promise I'm getting new headphones. I'm getting the clear ones that I've seen. Derek, actually, when you mentioned Derek, I was going to ask him where his headphones are from because I like his clear headphones that kind of like fit in there. Kimberly, do you think you're going to start a membership or do you need more moderators? I will make you a mod if you want to be, because I know you've been here and you've stayed. I think I need to do it on my computer later, but I'm definitely going to need more mods because I do see this being more of a regular thing for me. I would love to get to the point where I don't know if I can have a friend help me with this. I might have my best friend help me. I would like her to like give me portions of the case to talk about because she's watching it throughout the day and maybe I can come on the same day and recap it the same day instead of coming the day afterwards, but I'm just starting. So I'm interested in the Brian Koberger case. I'm not going to lie. That's kind of why I wanted to get my feet wet and learn how to do this because I want to discuss that case. I have a lot of like, I don't know why I'm emotionally attached to it, but I think guess what? I'll give you a little insight. Tomorrow I'm going to be filming a Brian Koberger standalone case for this channel, like standalone video for this channel. It's a little bit of a deep dive into something that I'm going to I'm going to write your names down. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. I have a little bit of a theory, I guess you could say. It's not really that, but I want to compare and contrast a couple things. And I think you'll really like it. It's different from my main channel, and that's the whole point. Do I think I'll have a membership on here? I'm not sure yet. Someone said that core TV days, I did the same and I miss those times. I do. I don't have TV like I used to. I love how I've been able to actually put my ideas out there, especially because I talk to myself about them. Okay, that's why I'm here. I promise. I'm not doing this for me. I can tell you I'm doing it so that we can come together because I don't hear anyone's thoughts. I hear them on other people's lives, but I feel like lives that are on a certain person's channel have developed their develop their character from the presenter, right? So I thought I would love to do this on my own so that I can have my friends, because I think you're my friends, kind of get their perspectives. And thank you for saying I'm killing it. Sometimes we get scared of using that. Like John and I'll be like, no, don't say that. Don't say that. I mean, he's usually right here. So that's why I'm, hi. He's like not sitting here right now. And thank you for saying that I'm stellar. Please keep doing these lives. I will, and I'll make you some mods since you have been here since the beginning. And also, Marie said that's going to be great digital forensic evidence. Definitely. And I've never moderated before, but if you need me, know that I'm here for you. I will make you a mod just in case for my next one. I will go back through the chat later and hopefully it's still up because I did tell YouTube that I wanted my chat. So if they don't put it here, I'm going to be really upset. I watch this trial all day daily, but there's so many good parts. It's hard to pick which are the best. I know. I have moderated and have a criminal justice degree. Thank you for letting me know that. That's freaking awesome. I really respect anyone who, dedicates so much time to learn. And that's also why I'm actually really happy when I do cases where the investigation went well. This is not one of them. Karen Reed is not one of them. But there have been so many cases I've done where I'm like, wow, they did a great job on this case. Like Megan Barroso just did that case on my channel, did an excellent job. Those investigators never slept. You don't really get to see that part in my cases, but I'm just really glad you are all here with me. And I thank you again for being on a live with me and hearing my thoughts and getting yours as well. I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I can hear that there is a singer that has come into the studio because we have a full blown studio here in Los Angeles. And I'm doing a little bit behind the scenes on my Patreon. We might even make a Dark Livity Patreon or combine the two. We're kind of trying to think about that because we've got so many cool things going on with John and his studio here that I'm sure some people would like to see, not everybody, but thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to gear up for that next video. I'm probably going to put it out on Monday, I believe, because I do need to edit it. And that's the hardest part. But thank you so much for being here. And yes, OJ was my first trial as well. That's where this room comes from. This was my room in the 90s when I watched the OJ Simpson trial. I've got a lot of 90s memorabilia here. Thank you all so very much. I will give Mazzy some love. By the way, if you guys could, I hate saying guys because we're not all guys, but if you could give me your real first names, cool. If not, don't worry about it. But we'll talk about that next time. And if I can know you better, that would be great. I will make you mods and I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for being here today. Bye. Good night. I'll see you in the next one.